Hello everyone, welcome to our today's Tech Talk session. Today we are here with Kambis. He is the head of startup services at Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. Startup now. He was the founding partner of Freebiebox, Carployee, and whatchado. He has been awarded Startup Rockstar Austria, European Youth Award, UN World Summit Award also, and many more. He has helped many young entrepreneurs by teaching them leadership development, business consulting, political consulting, market research, public research, and project management. So, Kambis, great to have you here. How are you today?
Hello, Sargam. Hello, community. Great to be here at today's talk with Tech Job Fairs. It's my second time, actually. I remember last year as well. Always a good experience. Yeah, looking forward to our conversation, to our discussion, and looking forward to helping you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining this session, and we are pleased to having you today. So, before moving forward to our today's session's topic, so if you would like to, can you please introduce yourself to our
Mhm.
audience, to everyone, and also tell us a little bit about your startup journey, because you were the
Sure,
founding member of so many startups I saw here. So, yeah.
sure. Yeah, so I remember very well when I started my first startup, which was around 2011, 2012. So some years ago, actually, 10, 12 years ago, right after finishing my bachelor's degree at the Vienna University of Economics and Business. And I was there like for 5 years. And after 5 years, I decided, to move out. We had our difficulties, internally. We were not all of us, all of the founders, all of the management in the same direction or moving into the same direction. So we had like some different strategic goals. So I moved out and I started joining other startups, setting up new startups, co-founding other startups, but also investing into other startups. The more I moved on, and approximately 1.5 years ago, I switched positions. So I became the head of startup services at the Austrian Federal Economic Chambers, which is the official representative, the official Chamber of Commerce for startups in Austria. And our ultimate goal is to foster, an ecosystem where young but also older people, can start their startup as easy as it gets. That's something we're working on because right now we have over 2,800 startups in Austria. Why not having like five times the amount or 10 times the amount of startups? Because if you take a look at what is the core, let's say, goal of startups, it's being innovative. Okay, it's being innovative. It's like scaling internationally, but also like having impact globally because of this scalability. So this is something we're working on, and in recent years, particularly when it comes to, let's say, green technology, clean technology, there has been some strong movement here, and this is something we're working on. So everyone who wants to co-found or found a company here in Austria, particularly a startup, can come to me, and I will try to provide them with all the support they can get.
Okay, great. That's great. Our today's topic is the new generation of job creators.
Mhm.
So it is around also the job seekers and also the on the young entrepreneurs community that we are going to talk
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
So our first question is here, like for someone, how to define a startup?
Mhm.
How anyone can define this business was could consider as a
Mhm.
startup, and is this based on their revenue percentage model or what?
Mhm. Mhm. So this is actually a topic which is still in discussion. So there are different opinions on it. Even here at the Chamber of Commerce, when I started 1.5 years ago, there have been discussions on this. So I will sum it up in a way with a term we use at the Chamber of Commerce, or which I use in practice as well. So if we think about what is a startup, so first of all, it's a company, but why is it different to other companies? So there are different factors that are attributed to a startup. First of all, you have a time frame. Here we say maximum of 10 years after the foundation process. Some other organizations, they say maximum 5 years. So it's a time frame where you can still call yourself a startup. If you have founded your company 15 years ago, then usually you won't be considered as a startup. Okay, that's one thing. But that's very like rudimental one. So let's continue. What else is there? So one thing you mentioned already, it's about like the growth. Okay, so a startup
Yes.
doesn't try to grow organically, let's say 10, 20% per year in terms of like revenue for, let's say, they try to double or triple or even more quadruple the amount of like revenue users, even like employees year by year. So it's a very strong focus on growth, and not just local growth, but global growth. So the thing about startups is usually they have some kind of software and digital component, a digital business model, even if they have some physical or some kind of hardware product. But in the end, they still have some kind of digital business model, which enables them, to grow internationally quite easier than, let's say, traditional companies, traditional SMEs. Okay, this is a very important factor. So this scalability in terms of like business model, which again is affiliated to internationalization. So if you take a look at the numbers here in Austria, over 70% of all startups in Austria are international, meaning they generate revenues outside of Austria. I mean, it's logical because Austria is a relatively quite smaller market compared to other bigger ones, but still this
Yes.
internationalization is very important. Also, the technical component is important, so that you have some kind of technical innovation or at least some innovation in the business model. And when I talk about innovation, I'm not saying that you have to start with a product that has never been here. So I hardly know any startup out there that is very unique when it starts. Okay, if you take a look at these all the global tech companies, okay, in Europe, in Asia, in the US, and so on, um, they're not the first ones. Think about like Airbnb, think about like Bolt here in Europe. Think about all the educational technology platforms that are out there. So they don't have to be the first ones, but still they have to differentiate themselves in terms of like the product and technologies from the others. Okay, that's very, very important. And another last factor I want to mention, which is not like I would say something that has to be there, that is necessary, but for some it's also like some kind of factor. It's about venture capital being raised. So a startup usually, they because they focus on growth, and because they want to be very fast, faster than all the others, they raise money, let's say every 1.5 year, okay, to
Yes.
grow even further, to grow faster. So the quality and the amount of venture capital can also be a defining factor for a startup. This is the startups as we understand it in Austria. And if you take a look, if you take it in a very strict definition, we have quite more than like 2,800 startups right now at the moment in Austria, which is like 1%, only 1% of all the companies that are being founded like every year. So all of the companies that are being founded here in Austria, 1% really are defined as startup companies.
Yes. So, yes. So, for every startup, I think for every country, like Vienna is also, I think, a hub of a startup, right? And you are also from Vienna, right?
So yeah, I'm from Vienna. I was born here. I have Iranian origins, so I'm Austrian and I am Iranian. And I've been knowing the ecosystem for more than 10 years. So I know what was the stage 10 years ago, what was the stage 5 years ago, what it is now. And half of all the startups in Austria are located in Vienna. Okay, to just give you like an understanding how important Vienna is for the ecosystem here. It's a growing ecosystem. It's an ecosystem that is getting more professional, that has strong verticals in life science, in biotech, in even fintech and crypto tech. So, for instance, here in Austria, we have around like 200 blockchain related startups compared to Germany, which has 400, just double the amount, even though they have like 10 times the amount of like population. Also, everything that goes to green technology and clean technology. This is a strong vertical, which is also being like fostered and where there are a lot of grants here in Austria. Also, Vienna in particular, compared to other ecosystems in Europe, has a strong amount of female-led startups. Okay, still, we need to get better here, but compared to the others, Vienna, when you compare to other cities in Europe, is quite strong. But still, we need to get better here. So yes, it's a
Yes.
growing ecosystem. It's getting better. It's getting more professional. We at the moment have like 6 unicorns in Austria, not just Vienna, but in Austria, and
Yes.
around like 12 other like potential unicorns in the upcoming 12 months. And why do I mention these unicorns? Because if you become a unicorn, you usually raise a lot of money as well, and then you spend it, and then you generate a lot of new jobs. So the unicorns we have here, they're growing very
Yes.
strongly. They're employing a lot of new people, not just locally in Austria, but also internationally. And you mentioned it in the beginning. The topic about our discussion is like startups, a new generation of job creators. Because if you take a look for the like last 10 years and categorize all the different company profiles we have, SME, corporates, startups, and so on, startups have been those ones worldwide who have contributed to net jobs. So they have created really new jobs, whereas others, even if they have created some new jobs, they have like cut it somewhere else. So it's more like some zero-sum game in the end with traditional companies, but with startups in particular, they really are creating net jobs and also new jobs. And we'll just give you a number. So in 2025, more than 3.2 million jobs in Europe will be provided by startup companies.
Okay, great. So as you mentioned, like there are six unicorns in Austria, right? And our, most of our viewers are job seekers.
Mhm.
So, like, if I ask you a question, like from a job seeker's point of view, because this is a very important question as a job seekers, and because nowadays people are very conscious, job seekers are very conscious about their job journey. They want to looking for for long growth, right? For so from your point of view, like which type of company is best workplace for job seekers, whether it is the startup or the unicorn?
Mhm. So the thing, about startups, one factor I told you in the beginning, what defines a startup is like being innovative. So it somehow kind of runs in the blood of like startups, in the founders, in the genes of startups, which is very important to be innovative in terms of like the business model, the product, the customer, maybe even group, and so on and so on. So innovation drives startups, and the same relates to the to the term jobs. So to the term like how I employ people. So if you want to really scale as a startup, you have to be innovative in all direction. So also applying to how do I employ my people? How do I get my people? What do I provide to them? I'm not saying that all startups are very innovative, but I really believe this needs to be part of like the DNA because they want to scale, they want to become the number one in some markets. So they have to employ the best people, and you can only employ the best people if you provide them enough. So the thing is now, particularly here in Austria, also Germany and Switzerland, we have a job market which is really dominated by employees, not by the employees, but the employees. Why? Because there are a lot of jobs, and there are not enough people quantitatively, to fill in the jobs. So they have to get people somewhere else, maybe even outside, internationally, even outside of Europe. Um, so the thing is, good people, good candidates, good employees, they can choose where they go. That's why there is a really tough competition also among startups. And think about now, you have the SME side, you have the corporates, and you have the startups. 10 years ago in Austria, we didn't have like really big startups, but it has changed. So a lot of now bigger startups coming, now competing on top level with other international startups. So they have to be at the edge of the time, similar to innovation, product innovation. The same applies to the employees, to the jobs, and so on. I can't, to tell you now, this is the one startup I would go to. But there have been, a lot of startups in Oslo who are trying new things, new types of like employment. Maybe let's say for fully remote, wherever you want to work, whenever you want to work, full flexibility, or
Yes.
take holiday whenever you want to. A 4 days week, for instance. So even one of my own startups, the one I first started, whatchado, they implemented a 4-day week some time ago, being like one of the first movers here in Austria in the startup ecosystem, but in like overall as well. You have Bitpanda, who have just launched like an initiative, take holiday as much as you want, or other startups who say, hey, and not only if you are like a mother, but also if you're a father, you can also go your parental leave the same amount of time. So there's a lot of tough competition because they need to be innovative, because there are a lot of like other opportunities for good candidates. Just take a look. There are unicorns in Austria. There are startups as well. I mean, unicorns are bigger. They are now more structured. You have flexibility, but you don't have the same flexibility as like a smaller startup with like 10, 20 people. So usually it's like until the point of 30 employees. And when it exceeds, then you try to, build up all the structures which you need, to leverage growth. But until then, there's a lot of like movement, flexibility, people doing like 2, 3 positions. So I think, in my opinion, you have to be aware, what do you want? Do you want, apart from the benefits, do you want a bit more flexibility, or is less flexibility okay? Still, even unicorns, you will face more flexibility than most traditional companies as well. Okay, but there is a lot to offer by the ecosystem here.
Yes, yes. So yes, I would like to add here also because after the pandemic started, whether it is a startup or the unicorns, so all have understood like working from home and giving the flexibility to employees that can be gives the better productivity for the company, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mean that the pandemics has accelerated some development. Yeah, I mean, not only with startups but all companies, even traditional
Yes,
ones, suddenly had to adjust because it was demanded by external factors, but also by the employees. And now the question is, can you really go back to the former status quo? Okay, I believe in most cases you can do this. Okay, you as an employee will have to find a way. Where you combine different elements, where you say, okay, we have some traditional components which we'll still want to pursue, but there are new ones as well: remote working, flexible working hours, the amount of working hours you have per week, all the benefits and so on. So this has changed. The demand has changed from the employee side. That's why, if you really want to continue being successful, you will have to think about it, how to do this. And now from a more, let's say, macroeconomic level, think about,
yes,
you had some strong urbanization, so people moving into city centers or cities for the work. Okay, but now,
yes,
because remote working is so much now present now, you don't have the need to move into like an urban area. You can like work from home. So this is very
yes,
interesting to see how this will have an impact on. Will people continue to, go still move into the city, or they say no, we'll work from everywhere else? And then think about all these companies, particularly mid-sized companies, who usually go for people in the very region. Now they are competing with like all the companies worldwide, because if remote working is a very dominant factor, then even all these people in the same region, they can say, no, I want to work, for a big tech company, let's say in Singapore. Okay, so this is very
yes.
interesting to see how it works. That's why you have to be innovative when it comes to like how you employ employees as well. This is very important, because at one point you won't be successful anymore, in hiring like good candidates.
Right. So, would you like to give some insight on, of the advantages and the disadvantages of working in a startup company?
Yeah, so it depends really at what time you join a company. If you found your company, or if you really move into a startup like early age on the first 2, 3 years, or if it's a unicorn. So it really depends. But the thing is, I can just tell you from our own experience, the impact you can create, it's much more palpable for you. You can see much more of the impact you create because of what you do, and this is something that can really motivate you. So if you are, let's say, a tech guy, a software developer, a data scientist, a product developer, a seller, whatever, um, the direct impact you can have in like startups it's really strong, and you can really feel it. You can really experience it much more as compared to like bigger corporates with like 10,000s of employees. I'm not saying that they are not doing a good job. All of them are, or most of them are doing a good job. But the impact you can create, it's much more palpable for you. So that's one factor I would think about. And apart from that, this if you join a startup, um, two-thirds of all startups, for instance, in Austria, they would consider themselves as green startups. So startups who try to address ecological, sustainable goals as well. So this is in their like somehow in their core, and it becomes even more important because you have new generations who you really demand even more out of it. So particularly think about the younger ones, the younger generation, the generation Z and so on. For them, all these startups, these startups who call themselves green startups, is somehow like the right place to go because they really contribute to this kind of impact thinking, this kind of sustainable thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for giving this insight. And I would like to add here, like if any viewers have any questions regarding the startups and working in any startup and related with any startup journey, so you're feel free to drop your question in the comment box, and we will cover it up in while ending up the session, right? So yeah, so next, moving forward for our next question, which is related to young entrepreneurs. So every entrepreneur, whether I'm from India or you're from Austria, right? So everyone wants to build their own startup. So, but if I talk about in the especially the tech industry, so how
Mhm.
can anyone build their own startup in tech industry? And what are the requirements, like if I talk, and is it necessary to be a tech people to build up any tech industry? Because this is the question what I saw in many portals.
Can you just repeat the last point you mentioned? What was the last question you said?
Yes, so how can anyone build their own startup in tech
Mhm.
industry? And
Yeah.
is it important to, he must be from techie and tech
No.
industry? So yeah.
Okay, good question, very important question. So the thing is, I mean, first of all, you sure have legal requirements, and these are different compared to like each region. For instance, one of the easiest way to found a company here is like to have some kind of international visa, international student visa. Actually, you study somewhere at the university in Austria, and then you can also, like in most cases, found your own company. Okay, so this
Yes.
is the easiest way. So you have legal requirements. Maybe let's say some kind of minimal funding you need, some kind of contracts you need, some maybe lawyers, notaries. In Austria, you have also like trade license, and so you have legal requirements. But one thing, the easier the foundation process, the more foundings you will see and experience in a country. Okay, so those countries who have like more or more let's say less requirements when it comes to like founding your own company, they tend to have like more startup companies as well. Okay, that's one
Yes.
thing. The second thing is though, I mean, yeah, when I, for instance, want to start a new company, a startup. So what I do, first of all, I need to understand, is there a target customer group, okay, which has some kind of demand for a solution because they have a problem. Okay, so the customer research process, the market analysis is very important. And my suggestion is always to take a look what kind of competition is out there. And in all cases, there's competition, maybe not locally, but internationally. So you have to get an understanding about your competitors, indirect, direct, see how they address the target customers, what kind of product they have, and then to see how can you differentiate from themselves. So very important, customer research. You have hypotheses, you need to validate it, put a lot of effort into it in terms of like time. Also evaluate your competition, and also have an understanding how big is the market, is it growing or not. Also from an investor's perspective, because for startups it's
Yes.
important, they take a look at the team in particular, the competition in terms of like do they match each other in terms of like hard skills, but also do they share the same values and goals. That's one factor. The second factor is the market potential. The higher the market potential, the bigger the market, the more the growth, the more realistic it becomes that they will join you, your company, your startup as an investor. Okay, I can tell you myself because I'm investing as well. Okay, so you have to first of all take a look at the legal requirements. Then you have to understand your target audience, your competition market, um, but there are also very human features, very important characteristic that can or can decide whether you really can become a startup founder or not. And one thing that I think is very important, you need to be very persistent in what you're doing, because when you start, you will always face some kind of challenges throughout all the time, every week. When you're early stage, but also when you become bigger, even when you become a unicorn, you always face challenges. So this persistency is very important. This, in combination with like your ambitions and also like the willingness to learn, can really contribute to your success. And apart from that, now, because you refer, do you have to be from the tech industry? So the thing is, if you have a tech product, if you have a software product, um, it's good and it's relevant that you have a team, a founding team, whom of which one at least has this kind of technical expertise. You don't have to have it; it would be good, but at least if you're like found your company and you have a team, one part of this founding team should have this kind of expertise. And usually, if you take a look into the numbers, startups are being founded by people of two or three or even more. So sole founders are very rare, and also for most investors, it's a too high risk, okay, to invest into startups with like a sole founder. So usually you have to get a team anyway, and you don't have to be the guy who has the tech skills. I mean, you should have an understanding and you should learn, but within a team, at least one would be very good. But another factor, if we take a look in the industries that were disrupted by a startup company, by a tech company, often these teams don't originate from the industry itself. They originate from another industry. They say, okay, I've observed this industry. There's a lot of potential when it comes to digitization and innovation and so on. So let's innovate it. And then they enter this industry, and then they start like changing it, the fundamentals of it. And then in the end, disruption might take place as well. So this is a very interesting to see. You don't have to be from the industry, to change the industry.
Yes, yeah. And as you mentioned, the challenges while building a startup, whether it is the early stage or the you have got funding and all. But the one I think the challenge that Techjosphere is also solving, which is the hiring process. So for Techjosphere, basically we are giving the platform for tech companies and the job seekers, young tech talents, to bring them on a single platform, so where they can meet each other and can interact, and with the good profiling they can hire directly to them through
Mhm.
the our event, so whether it is the virtual and the physical one here.
Mhm. Absolutely,
So
absolutely. And in the beginning, you usually need two factors. You need someone who builds the product, so IT guys, software guys, usually. And then you also need someone who can sell it. So you need sellers or let's say online marketer who can sell it like online. These are the two components you need in the very beginning. So there, the hiring process is the most important one. It can be difficult. And later on, if you grow, the need for other positions might like become even bigger. But in the beginning, it's very important. So yeah, the hiring process is important. That's why it's good. You have like events and organizations like you, like Tech Job Fairs, because this is what you really need as like a startup who really wants to grow.
yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Great. So, Kambis, unfortunately, we are running out of time here, and so we have to end this session. But thank you so much for joining this session and giving us such a deep insight about the startup ecosystem. And I hope this insight will help many young entrepreneurs in building their dream startup. And also, there are so many questions that we have covered for job seekers also. So I hope this will also help to our job seekers community as well. So Yes, so that's all from our side, and that's all for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And so that is the end of the session here. And if you would like to, Kambis, add something from your
Mhm.
side.
Yeah, thanks, Sargam. Thanks for the moderation. Really enjoyed it. So, for those who are in the audience who have listened to our conversation, you can add me on LinkedIn. Let's stay in touch. Looking forward to exchange like ideas, etc., with each other.
Yes, thank you so much. So, yeah, see you all in our next session. Till then, be happy and keep smiling. Thank you so much.